This is Alabama Politics with Steve Flowers, an in-depth interview with Alabama's top political newsmakers. Now, from the studios of Troy University, here is Steve Flowers.
I'm Steve Flowers, and welcome to Alabama Politics. Folks, a very fortunate night to have as our guest one of my favorite buddies in state politics, the probate judge of Montgomery County, J.C. Love. J.C. is a native of here in Montgomery and is doing a fantastic job as probate judge, and folks in Montgomery are fortunate to have him. J.C., good to have you on the show.
Thank you, Steve, and thank you for having me on and giving me an opportunity tonight to talk to your viewers. So
you and I love to visit even off the air. We'll have lunch at the farmer's market. I think you like to talk politics with me.
Yeah, I do. It's one of the things I look forward to every month when we can get together and just kind of talk about local, state, and sometimes national issues and just get your take on it, because I know you've been involved in politics a number of years, so I always appreciate your insight.
You know, J.C., I've got a chapter in my book, Goats and Governors, 6 Decades of Colorful Political Stories, about in the bygone days when I was growing up, how powerful the probate judges were throughout the state, especially in the rural areas. I think Walker Harvey was probate judge here a long time, was he not?
Yes, he was. He was after Judge Hooper, I think, from 64
that's right. Judge Hooper came
98.
in 64.
Yes.
And the Republican thing in 64. He stayed a long time until he went on the Supreme Court, didn't he?
He stayed from 64 to 75, and then we had Judge Hobby took over from 75, I believe, to 98 when...
Hobby was a Democrat too, wasn't he?
Yes, he was.
Well, that was sort of unusual that happened in 64 in the Goldwater, what's called the Goldwater Straight Republican landslide. There were 8, Alabama had 9 Democratic congressmen, and 5 or 6 of them were wiped out by straight ticket voting.
Oh, wow.
And the probate judges, and some of the other areas, it was a straight ticket voting for the Republican Party for Goldwater.
Wow.
In 64. Did you not know that?
I didn't know that.
That's when the Republicans, there had never been a Democratic probate judge or never been a Republican probate judge in any of the, well, Winston had a probate judge, Republican, but in all 67 out of 66 out of 67 counties, plus every statewide elected official was a Democrat. Every congressman was a Democrat.
Oh, wow.
From 1876 to 1964. And then in 64, white Southerners were voting against Johnson for obvious reasons in 64 when race was the issue, and they voted straight Republican for Barry Goldwater. Oh, and that's when Judge Hooper became probate judge. That's when Bill Dickinson went to Congress.
Well, Judge Hooper was the last, up until me coming to office in 2019, he was the last attorney to serve as probate judge in Montgomery County.
Because Walker Hyde was not a probate judge.
No, he wasn't. Nor was Reese McKinney or Judge Reed when he served as probate judge.
That's right. McKinney was not. So Walker Hyde was probate judge how long?
He was from 1975 till 1998.
That's 23 years.
Yes, he was.
He was 4 terms.
Yes, he was.
Now, he'd served in the House for that, but he was not a non-lawyer. He was a representative. He was state representative. And then, what year was that when who followed him? Did McKinney follow him?
Yeah, 1998.
He only served 1 term. McKinney only served 1 term.
Well, he stayed until 2012 when he was defeated by Stephen Reed, defeated him.
Okay, now so he served. He was elected 1 time.
Yes.
Was he elected twice?
1 time. I guess he took over a term, so he had two terms.
Now Stephen served. He didn't serve the full time because he ran for mayor in the middle, didn't he? Or was he had to give up his probate judge?
He had to give his probate judgeship. So he had won re-election in 2018, and then he served for most of the first year up until he took office in November.
You know, J.C., I've said this on previous shows we've been together, and I'm not trying to say Montgomery's not a big city, but Montgomery has always, to me, been an overgrown small town. And I say that in a good way because everybody knows people here.
Yes.
It's big, it's a city, but it's like an overgrown Troy, overgrown Prattville, overgrown Selma. It's like, you grew up with people.
Yes.
You know that you know him from your church.
Yes.
And I said that, I'm on CBS 8 here in Montgomery, and I said that when the mayor's race was going on one time, when there were a dozen of y'all running, and I said, well, you know, I believe J.C. Love and Stephen Reed would do well because they got roots here.
Well, yes, that's one of the things you really find here is that so many people from going to school together, playing sports, and just how people have come to move here. A lot of people have family connections, so it's not you know, unsurprising to talk to someone and mention someone. So that's my cousin or that's my uncle, and they're related. So it's a big city, but it definitely has that small town feel.
They would ask me, why are you picking those two out? I said, well, they're from here, and they got roots, they got connections. And especially Stephen's daddy been in political power for years, Joe Reed, throughout the state, but especially in Montgomery. But J.C., you know, talking about that, Judge, Montgomery still, Kirk Hatcher is from here originally too.
Yes,
but he went off to California somewhere for a while, or Chicago or something, to teach school or do something. What did he do off somewhere for a while?
Well, I believe he taught. I believe he taught in Connecticut, the New England area for a number of years, and then he returned here, I believe, in about 2014. He came back home. So he, like myself, went to Morehouse College and got, I think, a master's in divinity from Emory, and then went on to teach school for a number of years before returning home.
I wrote about that, as you know, and it's such a phenomenon. People around the state were interested in that. Is the Morehouse effect on Alabama politics, here in Montgomery especially, with you, Kirk Hatcher, Stephen Reed, and Judge Greg Griffin, all Morehouse men, and all went over to Atlanta. And you were in student government over there. You were president of SG, wasn't you?
Yes, and so was Judge Griffin. So he was president.
So he was president of SG
Yes,
too?
he was. And Randall Woodford in Birmingham. So the three of us.
Greg's a little older than you, though, isn't he?
Yes, he was class of '79 at Morehouse, and I was class of 2001.
So not much difference.
Not much difference, but
you helped Randall Woodford become president, didn't you?
Well, yes. You know, he was on my staff when I was SGA president. We had interned for Earl Hilliard in Washington, and he was a sophomore and wanted to know how he could get involved in student government. And so I put him on my staff, and he took off and won a student-wide office that following year as a junior, and then was president his senior year. So he always gives me credit when I talk about giving him his start into politics.
So you worked with Congressman Hilliard in Washington or in the district?
In Washington. We interned there in the summer of 2000.
When you were in college?
Yes.
What did you major in college?
I was a pre-law political science
You
major.
knew you were going to law school the whole time?
Yes, I did.
You are a lawyer by profession, and you know I was respected you for leaving. You were one of the top law firms here in Montgomery, and went over there to do public service. J.C., where'd you go to law school now?
I went to Boston College in law school.
Okay. Now, Boston College, where you followed Martin Luther King's path. Didn't he go to his graduate school at Boston College?
Well, he had gone to Boston University. Boston
That's
University.
Right, Boston University, yeah.
But we both spent time in Boston. I believe that's where he met Coretta while he was during his time in Boston.
She was from over in Sumter County, Marion County.
I think she was at the Berkeley School of Music when they met up there. But
Is that right?
Yeah.
You know, Judge, people don't realize what an intricate, involved, important, and very diverse job being probate judge of even a small county is. But being probate judge in Montgomery County is really 3 different jobs. You've got to run the probate office and probate wills. You've got to sell estates. That's a full-time job.
Yes.
Those 2 things. Then you've got, because of all the drug problems in the country now, you've got commitment hearings. You have to commit people to mental institutions. That's probably a full-time job.
Well,
then you've got elections,
Yes.
which is a 3rd full-time job. You got to run the elections.
Yes, we do.
Then your 4th thing, you've got tags
Yes.
here in Montgomery County. When you went in there, did you have somebody who'd been doing the stuff for the tags for a while that knew what they were doing, or did you have to hire somebody, or how'd that work?
Well, when I got there, we've had a group of experienced supervisors, because we have 4 different offices here in Montgomery County: downtown, our east office on Atlanta Highway, our west office on Mobile Highway, and our south office at McGee Road across from Lamp High School. So we've been fortunate enough to have.
Tell them again where all the locations are, where they can go and get their tags at 5 locations here in Montgomery.
Well, we have 4 locations. They can go downtown office at 101 South Lawrence Street.
Where you are.
Where we are and the county commission is. We have an office on Mobile Highway right across from the county health department. We have one on Atlanta Highway in Faulkner, where Faulkner is building right where the old Burlington Coat Factory would be on Atlanta Highway, and on McGee Road right across from the old Montgomery Mall where Lamp High School is.
Do all of them have pretty good traffic? I mean, like, people know where they're supposed to go and everything?
Well, for the most part, people know where they go. And so we've been really working hard at the probate court to really make our offices more accessible, to allow people to do more they can do via our mobile app, which your viewers can find on the Apple Store, Google Play Store, and that'll allow you to renew your tag, driver's license, register to vote. You can look at the wait times at our south, east, and west offices. So we're really happy about that, to really allowing people to use technology to plan their visits to our offices to do what they need to do.
Judge, when you were saying those locations, I'm surprised there's not one out of East Montgomery, or especially one at Pike Road. I'm surprised. Who represents them with the county commission? No, they would be bothering you to put one right there.
Well, that's our county commission chairman, Doug Singleton. He represents that Pike Road area. And so we've had conversations with him and Mayor Stone about looking at where the development of Montgomery County is going to take place over the next 10 to 15 years. So there were some talks. We were looking at some other locations to move it from where it is now a little bit further east.
Where is it? Where do most of those people trade and get their tags now? They come downtown?
Well, our busiest office is the Atlanta Highway office.
So most people at Pike Road go to Atlanta Highway?
Yes. And those people who also live in that Taylor Road, Vaughn Road portion, as well as the people who live in that Dalrata area coming out of downtown. So that's our busiest office by far.
Atlanta Highway?
Yes.
And it's where the old Burlington or the shirt
Well,
factory.
the same shop right next to the old Burlington Coat Factory used to be. The We're There Department of Revenue have been there. So we've been there a while. But we had some preliminary discussions about possibly trying to move that office a little bit further east, because east has moved a lot further than where it was when we initially put that office.
No question. I'm surprised Pike Road does not want one out there close where they are.
Well, they've been clamoring for it. And I think we're really just trying to look at the location and trying to see if we knew to functionally put one out there, or we can go ahead and just kind of move it further, because you don't want to have to pull from those residents that are currently using the east office and have to go out to Pike Road. So we're talking through that and working through that. But I think at some point in time, in the next 10, 15 years, the Pike Road's going to have an office out there.
Now, talking about the tags, that'd be an almost full-time job. So, you know, the tags are important. Most urban counties don't have the tags. The probate judge didn't have the tags, but you've got those. All the things I mentioned, commitments, estates, probate wills, which should be the most in elections in order of time and harder, more stress, or more importance? How would you rank your time? How do you schedule your time's valuable, because you got to be in court.
Yes.
You know, probating a will. Then you got to go send somebody off for drugs.
Oh, yes.
For mental health, and then you got to go, you know, make sure the tags are being sold out the Atlanta Highway. Somebody's gonna call you at night and say, "Man, I went the other guy there at 5 o'clock and they closed the door, and you know I wanted to get my tag and I can't get off." But I'm trying to get ahead of you. How would you rank all the duties you do, as far as difficulty and what you would rank? How would you rank all your jobs?
Well, I think when you're looking at it, I'm beginning most days dealing with mental health commitments. That's becoming a larger and larger part of what I do and my fellow probate judges throughout the state.
That's what I've heard from other probate. Bobby Junkins up in Etowah, and I've been friends a long time. Is he still a probate judge up there?
I believe so. Yes.
Anyway, tall guy.
Yes.
And he told me when that commitment stuff started. But now I've had some say elections.
Well, it all depends. You know, right now we're kind of a few weeks away from getting into the throes of the election. So right now, when you're dealing with commitments and you're beginning to get a lot more technical on what you're beginning to see. Like now we're starting to see the substance abuse in regards to the mental health, and you're also dealing with the estates and guardianships. You know, you're dealing with the estate matters when you've got sometimes families contesting a will, or when someone dies without a will and you've got administration, you have siblings fighting. And I always tell those people when they come in my courtroom that your parents would have hoped that you all would not be here fighting about the things they left behind. And so, you know, you have some of those questions because everything in the law is not settled, and sometimes you've got to come down and make a tough decision.
Are there statutes that would, if someone dies intestate, since you're on the estate thing,
yes,
are there statutes that apply?
Well, there's statutes that apply about ownership and breaking down ownership and who gets it, and there's a spouse about getting year support and things like that. But sometimes you get into them fighting over assets. That'll just say you all equally own this. But as I tell the folks that why they need a will, because who decides who gets this ring or who decides to get grandma's china when you really got to go and break up assets. And then you find sometimes in those family disputes, those are the things when you find the issues that came up in childhood, the sibling rivalries that come up, when you have sometimes family members fighting over things that aren't really worth a lot in value, but they're fighting more so for an emotional attachment reason. They felt their brother or sister was mom's favorite and always got their way. And so even though we're fighting over a $500 car that's not running, I don't want them to get it because I felt mom or daddy always gave them their way and bowed to them because they want it. I'm going to fight them to not have it.
That's hard to decide too. I mean,
yes,
because you really should decide if you're two siblings or two children, y'all could, but then it's like the biblical thing. What is Solomon? Who was that in the Bible that says cut them in half or something?
Yes.
Cut the. What was that verse that you've seen it, haven't you?
Oh, you put me. I know exactly what you're talking about. You got me on the spot, but yeah, I know.
So he was a judge type person. And
yes.
Said, well, what do you want me to do? Cut the baby in half or what? You know.
but yeah, that's when it really gets technical. I remember last year there was a case that came before me, and you had a stepson. Fighting with his with his stepmother, stepson fighting his stepmother over trying to get access to some of his father's ashes for burial, and so those are the things that you sometimes have to decide, and they're not fun. They're not any winners or losers, you know, because you know you have the son that wants a portion of his father's ashes to bury, and then you have the widow's right to the ashes, and so. You know, the law is not really settled on it, and so that's why it really comes down to have to go with your gut and do what you believe is right.
You know, you really do need to be a lawyer to be a probate judge. Of course, in the old days, most of the rural probate judges were not lawyers, but it is good you're a lawyer and you know the law. But back to the commitment thing, I've had so many probate judges tell me that because of the drug pandemic, or just prevalence of drugs, that there's so many commitment hearings now, and that's sort of a sad thing, isn't it? I mean, you see a young kid come in your court, and well, not just young kids, but that takes more time, doesn't it? Which is more time consuming, estates and land disputes or commitments?
Well, the commitments, because we're getting more of them, just because COVID has exacerbated the need for you know, more commitments, that we're having people who are younger, even older people who never had any issues with any type of mental psychosis now beginning to need mental health services. And as we talked about, we were beginning to see younger people, beginning to see other people with the dual diagnosis of substance abuse and mental health. And so before we used to have to kind of unravel that onion and go and see, is it more mental health or is it more substance abuse? But now it's so closely intertwined that you're having to treat both. That you can't.
In that case, it's not as difficult a judicial decision because you have professionals that come in and tell you this person really does need to be committed. I mean, so you rely on that mostly, don't you?
So we have a physician who comes in and provides a clinical diagnosis. They also have a guardian ad litem who the court appoints to go and meet with them to get an observation and then report back to the court about what they want. And the respondent also has the right, if they have the means, to retain their own attorney to be able to represent their interests at the hearing. So we have the clinical diagnosis about what they've observed and what they've seen to being the cause and whether or not they believe it's medically necessary to be committed. But also you have, you know, a guardian ad litem, an attorney who's gone on, met with them, evaluate them, and also give an opinion about whether or not the commitment is needed.
Mm-hmm. Well, now, do you have many land disputes?
You know,
that's more in rural areas, isn't it?
More rural areas. You know, we'll go ahead and get the condemnations when you're looking at condemning private property for public use. So
does that have to go through you too?
Yes, it does. We deal with condemnation. Yes,
has to go through you.
So yes.
If they want to build a road out here near Hull Street, they got to go through the probate. It's not a circuit judge office.
No, it falls in the purview of the probate court.
My gosh, if y'all got, you know, it's amazing how many jobs you got.
We also deal with adoptions.
Oh my God!
So we're the court of original jurisdiction. So all adoptions originate in probate court.
So all the circuit judges do is they just handle the criminal and the civil cases, don't they?
Well, some of the domestic family stuff, the divorces come before them as well. But it's definitely a lot more involved than people really realize. And as you talked about the probate judge being in Montgomery, in the state being an attorney, there is a constitutional amendment that'll be on the ballot in November that, if approved, it will require the probate judge in Montgomery County to be held by an attorney, and we'll join Mobile and Jefferson County if it passes that have that constitutional amendment. But I believe when you look at a 68 probate judges, probably about a third are just by nature legally trained. But as you know, as you talked about the power of the probate judge position in about 15 counties here within the state, then the probate judge, in the absence of a county commission chairman, also chairs the county commission. So in those smaller counties, it's a very, very powerful position.
It really is. Well, now, it used to be more powerful when they were, like I talked about over lunch one day, they used to be on the fee system.
Yes.
And people don't realize that in the old days, the probate judge really in the rural counties, urban too, owned that job, and they would get a cut off every fee and license and everything. And it wasn't unusual for a county the size of my home county of Pike. We had 25 or 30,000 people. Nobody much knew this, but the probate judge would make $100,000 a year in 1965. That would be equivalent to $1 million a year now.
Wow.
Did you know that?
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's a very lucrative position.
I remember I talked to someone who knew what they were doing, and says that our probate judge in Pike County, being on the fee system, probably made $100,000 a year in 1963 to 65.
Wow.
And you Google that, and it comes up to over $1 million a year.
Wow.
And you know, it was a lucrative. That's why they would do everything they could to win that job. And plus, they knew how to get votes. I mean, back then, you know, there were some votes that could be.
I remember in your book you talked about that, being able how generally the position was held by the most popular politician in the county.
And the gubernatorial candidates knew that too. They would simply just go to the probate judge and try to curry their favor, and the probate judge would endorse a candidate for governor. And the probate judge had a cadre of maybe 1,000 votes that they could count on every time. You know, and they'd say, well, you know, yeah. And they'd carry Pickens County because the probate judge was for them. But Lord knows, it's just changed, and you know, that you've got so many jobs. And I have talked to probate judges around the state from rural and urban counties, and some of them say certain different things. You know, I had one that told me the elections drove them crazy.
Well, yes.
You know, that was a real problem. You know, election, you got to prepare for them, get everything done. And I remember Wes Allen, when he was probate judge of Pike County, he'd spend months getting ready for it.
Oh, we spend months making sure our equipment has been tested, has been repaired and ready to go. And it was definitely challenging during COVID just to make sure you had enough poll workers.
That's right. Yeah. And of course, the other thing too is most poll workers are older people.
Yeah, they are, and that was the issue for us, particularly going in July. That because we're still learning about COVID and people didn't know how it was, and our average age of our poll workers over 65. A lot of them didn't want to work the polls, and we were fortunate that before COVID hit, that we had increased our base salary of poll workers from the 100 to 150. And then we also had some COVID money from the Secretary of State, who also provided a supplement that really helped us to have not only enough to meet our needs, but also a deep bench of poll workers, people who wanted to serve as poll workers that we could go to for elections.
Judge, you know, John Merrill's done a good job as Secretary of State, hasn't he?
Yes, he has.
I really want to tip my hat to him because I think every probate judge I talked to and every election official confirms that Merrill really did a great job. He got that office functioning really well and did it with a streamlined office too. Office staff. How many employees do you have?
I have 65 employees.
See, that's another thing. You got to manage 65 people. People don't realize how difficult that is.
Over 5 different buildings, and even on election day, you're bringing in about another 650 poll workers, another 30 deputies that are securing our polling precincts, and then just some of the temp staff we have that support our election staff to get everything ready. And you talked about Secretary Merrill. I'm happy for the support that he has given us at the probate court, that he really partnered with us for a pilot project that we have for electronic kiosks. That we initially saw that during the 2020 election, there were a number of college students who thought they had registered to vote through different social media sites that different groups were advertising, and when they showed up to the polls that November, they weren't registered to vote. And so we were able to go and get electronic kiosks and put them in all the colleges and universities to give the students there a safe and secure means to vote. And we are now working with MPS to put these kiosks at all of our public high schools here in Montgomery County to try to encourage voter registration among the newer, younger group of students and get them registered and get them involved and get them participating in voting as they begin to enter the real world.
That's great. You know, as an aside, we ain't got much time left. You know, John Merrill's daddy was a probate judge.
I remember out of Cleburne County, yes.
Cleburne County. So he grew up in the courthouse. Anyway, I appreciate you taking time to be with us. I hate that our time goes by so fast, but I hope people in Montgomery County and other surrounding counties realize how many jobs, how many hats, and the old saying is that the probate judge in the county wears now. And the same is true of Autauga and Elmore and all the bordering counties too. Lowndes and Dallas, but you got a bigger job here in Montgomery. But our time's up. But folks, our guest tonight has been my friend Judge J.C. Love, who is a native of Montgomery and is a current probate judge and doing a fantastic job as the probate judge, which probably has about 4 or 5 jobs to it. Anyway, thank y'all for watching, and we thank Judge Love for being with us and hope you'll tune in again next week for Alabama Politics. Thank you, Judge.
Thank you.